Okay, can I just get a show of hands? How many of us teach voice here? Cool, cool, cool. Okay, how many of us teach music in general or other instruments? Yep. Very cool. How many of us are familiar with trauma and its impact on the body? That's a much broader topic. Somewhat. Okay, cool. So what we're going to be talking about today, there's going to be quite a bit of reflection happening here. And so you're not required to respond to anything out loud if you don't feel comfortable to. There might be moments where I ask us to have a little group discussion or I ask you to chat with a neighbor. But there might be some reflective stuff that comes up that's going to be really helpful in moving forward as facilitators and teachers so that when we're more self-aware of how we show up, we can then show up better for the kids that we're working with and the adults that we're working with too. So that being said, why don't we all close our eyes and take one deep belly breath together. Ready? In through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Good. One more. Inhale through the nose. Hold it at the top. Exhale with a sigh. Make a sound. Very nice. We're going to do that one more time. And this time, let that exhale, let that sigh be a little bit bigger than you think it should be. Inhale through the nose. Exhale with a sigh. Ah. Good. How did that last one feel? Does anybody want to share what that was like? Vocally, in the body, in your mind?
A little awkward.
A little awkward. Yeah.
Like, is everyone else going to do it?
Right, right.
You gave us the cue because I was waiting who's going to be first.
Yeah, so there's that apprehension of like, am I going to be the only one doing it? Is this going to be embarrassing? Or am I going to be judged? What is it going to sound like? Am I allowed to be loud? How loud should I really be? All of these things come from several things in our lives, some of which are our social experiences, our cultural experiences, systemic issues, and then more internal intrinsic issues. So, is a student being shy or has their voice, opinions, and presence been minimized their whole life? Is a student attention seeking or is vocal hyperextension the only way they've fought to be acknowledged? So here we're going to examine the way that cultural conditioning, traumatic experiences, societal expectation, gender, and race shape vocal expression. And then we're going to talk about somatic practices, so what we just did, breathing in, connecting to the body, and then making sound through it. That's a somatic practice. Soma means body, so we're just reconnecting to the body, becoming present with it, becoming aware of what's happening here. Okay, goals. We're going to talk about the voice in context, so the specific experiences that we might have. We're going to talk about the nervous system for a moment and how it might show up with specific vocal patterns for singers or for speaking. We're going to talk about how we can use a trauma-informed lens as teachers, and then specific somatic tools for empowered expression. Oh, and then we'll talk a little bit. And we'll have a little chat. Okay. So first question, and you'll see this on your sheet. What is your relationship with your voice? And this is a specifically broad question for a reason. Very broad. Whatever comes up for you, that is for you to acknowledge for yourself. You don't have to share it if you don't want to. If you are struggling to think of what that really feels like, I've also got some options here. You might feel pretty comfortable and connected with your voice. Maybe you do feel a sense of vocal freedom. Excuse me. Maybe you're feeling curious about your voice. Maybe you haven't done too much exploration and you know, I can probably go a little bit further, but we'll see. Maybe you feel like your relationship to your voice is inconsistent. So maybe there's certain places where you feel like super free to express yourself or to be loud or soft, and then maybe there's certain spaces where you feel like you have to shut down and close off a little bit. Maybe you feel disconnected from your voice. Maybe you don't feel fully safe or comfortable speaking your mind, whether that be your opinions, your ideas, your thoughts, or the actual use of your singing voice. Another option is, I don't know, I've never really thought about it. And that's okay too. Something to consider. Does your relationship to your voice change depending on where you are? So think of when you're at home versus when you're with your friends versus when you are in an office or on stage or when you're teaching in a classroom. Does anyone feel brave enough this morning to share their response? Yes.
I felt like the first thing I thought of was fragile.
Wow.
Like that in my relationship, I had just had strep and I lost my voice. And it really made me realize how dependent I am on it and how much I rely on my voice and like that is my mode of communication in the world. Being able to use my tones and I can't talk to my dog or kid and my peers.
Yeah. And so when you can't communicate verbally, how does that feel?
It's terrifying, actually.
Scary.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. So if the relationship feels fragile, terrifying if you don't have access to it, what else might come up if you can't use your voice?
Disenfranchised.
Loneliness, maybe?
Yeah.
Loneliness, inability to connect with others, create relationships. Anything else coming up for anyone? Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
For me, it's the only part of my musical being that didn't go to school. And so for me, it's like really freeing. And I'm less judgmental because I'm not a vocalist. I always say I'm a saxophonist who sings. Because when I get to the bit, they go, oh, you must be the singer because you're a woman. And you probably get the same thing. And I'm like, no, yeah, that's I'm carrying some shit in here, you know?
Yeah.
And so that part is cool. And I actually sang an original song to my saxophone professor years later, and he goes, why don't you phrase like that on the horn? Like, it was so me that, and that was always like my constant trying to, instead of emulating the men that I had heard, why don't I try to be more me?
Find your own voice. What is your identity?
Yeah.
How do you express yourself
Exactly.
authentically?
Instead of being more, trying to prove them wrong.
Yes.
I'm not, I'm trying to, I can play that.
Me
part,
too, yeah. Do you have something to prove?
Yeah.
Are we taught, are we conditioned to believe that we have something to prove? That acceptance and love is conditional upon being seen a certain way, right? Did you want to share something? Maybe? You like perked up for a moment, but it's also okay if you don't want to share. That's also cool.
So I wrote kind of like extremes.
Okay.
Because I learned to sing in folkloric like environments against drums and bells and no mics. So the voice has to cut and it's very nasal and it's like you sing, I don't know, up in the mountain.
Yeah.
But then I also went to school and there was like all these people have this beautiful voice and sexy and then you had to work the mic and do like what we call música popular, like pop, like
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like I don't have that and I tried and then I don't know. It was like a weird experience because and then when I got to school I was like I taught ceremonies, like African ceremonies and I was like right at home. But I still feel like I should know how to use other types of voices. Because as a percussionist, like I feel like you should have a lot of tools, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I have one tool. That's so amazing.
Yeah. I think it depends on the intention, right? If you want to have tools because there's something to prove, that's different than these tools excite me and I feel like I can express my authenticity a little bit better if I had
My
them.
dad was a singer, so it's like already like, and I never sang until I was like, I don't know, 27.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, I did sing until I
Whoa.
was
That's really cool.
I was always a drummer and I was told when I was little. You remember that? Like you forget like the impact of teachers. When I was like 10, I was like, my teacher, the woman that I most admire, amazing musician, was like, Diana, just play, don't sing. You're and it's like forever. And I'm like, I'm a 20-year-old woman. Like, really? Am I still carrying this? Yeah.
Play.
Totally.
There's permission.
Yeah.
There's permission there for it not to be perfect. Permission to just explore.
Yeah.
exploration is, we know this, exploration is so important for finding your voice, finding who you are, even just like your identity. Think of like when you were a teenager and you're like exploring different fashion styles. Like maybe you had a goth phase, maybe the goth phase never went away, maybe it became forever. You know what I'm saying? Like that's okay, but that takes exploration. So how are we gonna find who we are, how we wanna express ourselves if we can't play around? And some people don't have the permission to play around. Some people don't have the permission to explore it. Some people have a lot of pressure put on them. Some people feel like they have to act and speak a certain way so that they can be safe, loved, perceived in a positive light. Okay, so this seems fairly obvious, but I separated it into 3 categories for a reason. So what can we do with the voice? Verbalize thoughts, opinions, ideas, right? So talking to people. This is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm saying, this is what's happening here. Create art through song and poetry. So not necessarily spoken directly, but in a more abstract, artistic way, singing, writing a poem. And then express emotion through sound. This, I think, is not talked about enough, and this varies with culture. There are certain cultures that grieve vocally, right? We have like the Wailing Wall, for example. There is expression of emotion that comes through with sound that is unbridled, not judged, and there's no wording attached to it either. And when we feel safe enough to express emotion through sound, that's when these two become stronger. So think of like, you're listening to Billie Eilish, right? How is she singing? Very breathy, very airy, very light, very up here. That's a specific emotion. When did it end? Very different intention than like, when did it end? Totally different vibes. But that's because there's exploration of emotion through sound. Same with like folks who don't feel comfortable expressing joy verbally, like laughing out loud. I don't know if y'all know, I don't know most of you actually. Sorry. I laugh really, really loudly. I take up space when I laugh, and people that I meet for the first time are like, whoa, like your laugh is just like, it's like booming. It's just like, you're not afraid. I was like, why would I be afraid to be joyful? Question mark. Are there people that are afraid to show joy, to be judged for how loud their joy is, how much joy they're taking up, essentially? Same thing with grief, right? Crying with sound. How many of us cried silently growing up, right? Don't make a sound. I'm gonna deal with this emotion by myself. I'm gonna go lock myself in my room because no one is able to actually take care of my needs. Maybe that wasn't your experience. For some people, crying by themselves, not making a sound, very, very real. But then crying with sound ends up being a totally different experience. Hi, welcome. Ends up being a totally different experience and actually helps us release certain experiences from the body. Okay, so everything that we talk about today, this is not to assign generalizations on any culture or on any specific students. There are voices that are just naturally a certain way, and that is beautiful and that is wonderful. What we're going to talk about today, though, is when those things are not natural. So when certain habits vocally are formed because of our experiences, as opposed to just someone who naturally talks like this all the time, is very different than someone who talks like that because it makes them feel safer. Okay. Things for us to consider, and this is also going to be written down if we feel like it. In context, the systems that affect us, not only as people, but our identities, the way that we show up in the world, the way that we walk the world. There are certain messages that are sent to us from a very young age, and we absorb those things like sponges, and that starts to develop who we become, our personality, our character. So we talk about the macro systems, societal systems, patriarchy, racism, capitalism, media, religion, educational systems. The mesosystems, community that you come from, the culture, the ethnicity that you come from, the expectations of that culture, the peer groups that you hang out with, people in your neighborhood, people at school. I personally consider city, state, country as meso. Some people might consider country macro, but I think, like, I'm a New Yorker. That's meso to me. I'm a Queens girl. That's meso to me. The United States, I also think that's meso, but some people might think that that's a macro cultural system. I bring that up to say the vibe between city, state, and country might vary, right? Someone from Ohio was probably raised vastly differently than someone from New York, right? And then someone from New York, you've got your 5 boroughs, but you've also got upstate New York. Okay. Okay, we've got 2 upstates here? Wait. How many New Yorkers do we have here?
I don't know if I can count myself as a New Yorker though, you know?
Why?
Because I'm an upstate New Yorker. Yeah.
Okay, no, that counts. Wait, everyone here is from upstate?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Fabulous. I'm a Queens girl. She's
I lived in Queens for a year.
beautiful. Where did we live?
Astoria.
I thought so. I loved Astoria. It was my favorite neighborhood ever. So much culture. Over 100 languages spoken just in Queens.
Wow.
Cultural hub. Diversity, insane. You are being exposed to every possible culture you could think of. You're expanding as a person. It's incredible. All right, and then we have our micro experiences, microsystems. So this might be your specific individual traumatic experiences. It might be your attachment with your caregivers, with your parents, right? The relationship you had with them. Were your parents super lax, super like, yeah, go, explore, do your thing? Or were they like rigid? It has to be this way. You're gonna get in trouble if it's not. Those 2 experiences create very different children, very different people. And then your individual relationships, like friendships, like romantic relationships. So can we take a moment to just explore, just for yourself, some of the macro, meso, and micro systems that shaped you? So I'll give an example just using myself. Macro, living under the patriarchy where there are gender norms, gender expectations of sex. I am a woman. Capitalism makes us believe that our worth comes from productivity. How has that shaped who we are? Media shapes how we're gonna feel about ourselves and the world around us. Do I have to look a certain way to be expected, to be accepted? Religion, I grew up Christian, but I ended up rejecting that later on because of some of the messaging that I got. Meso, so my ethnicity, I'm Armenian. It's a Middle Eastern culture. There are very specific cultural expectations of women in my culture. But then I also grew up in New York where it's like pretty expected that you're gonna be kind of blunt. You're gonna be kind of like, you're gonna say it how it is. And it's expected that you're a little bit more upfront with the way that you use your voice. Either you're gonna be more assertive and you're not really gonna dance around the topic. You're just gonna say, this is what it is. But in my culture, so this other meso system, women are expected to speak a certain way. They're expected to be polite and quiet and not very opinionated and sort of keep to themselves. So I had these 2 systems that were somewhat giving me mixed messages. And so that's where the nuance of these systems come in. It's never just one size fits all, black and white. We can have corrective experiences within some of these systems, and then we can have some damaging experiences within other systems. Yeah, is there any of these that someone would like to share? Just as we're considering them, like, oh, I didn't think about how this part of me, this system, might have affected how I show up. I didn't even consider that maybe I take up less space than I thought I was taking up because I was told that immigrants should not take up space, for example.
I was relating to you because my household, I'm from Boston, so we're all just loud. And
I love East Coast. That's it. We're all doing it right.
But it was a very interesting household that was clearly run by the patriarchy. It was definitely and that goes all the way down to micro, so the patriarchy thing definitely in my life. But interestingly, the women in my family just didn't really have many F's to give about it, so they kind of just didn't care, and they were still operating, but there was a level of as long as you're quiet around certain topics, especially like racism, like religion, like anything that could be perceived as the woman being out of place, then you were actually not okay in that moment.
Yeah.
If you were being loud about something that might be okay for a woman to be loud about, then it's okay.
So there's certain topics that are okay for you to use your voice in, take up more space in, but then certain
in fact,
systems.
we kind of relied upon for that too. Like
Really?
the storytellers, the comedians, the singers, the like leaders of the social gatherings.
Yeah.
But so many things were totally unacceptable to talk about.
So there's certain
And that was
roles.
unsaid as well. But we just knew, don't
talk about that.
Just start problems.
And what happens if those problems start?
Oh, big yelling, lots of drama.
So there's consequences.
Oh,
Big consequences. Those consequences could be as small as I get into a fight with my brother, or it could be as big as, oh, we don't talk anymore, or maybe there's verbal or emotional or physical abuse in some way. Consequences range. But the fact that the roles were complex, a little muddy, of like, you're allowed to do this, we like when you do this, we don't like when you take up space in this way, so
and
don't.
Funny enough, these messages were coming from the women. It was
becomes
look on your
internalized.
head, hair tight out of your face, etiquette, but also like, like
Yeah.
wrong. Like, but also do everything they say though.
Like, you were allowed to be better. You know, you were allowed to be better. I remember telling like my boyfriend, yeah, I went 3 for 4 today in the softball game, and he went like 1 for 4. She I was like, don't be better than him, right?
Crazy.
So don't let, and even though you are like that,
We all know you are.
So hide your
Okay,
shine.
yeah. Because it's gonna cause problems for me. It's gonna cause problems for everybody.
Hide your shine, because it's going to be threatening to someone with a really fragile ego. So how many people have to make themselves smaller just so that they can still fit into whatever group they're in? Thank you for sharing that. That's,
And then another
yes.
confusing thing would be like if you chose that day that you weren't feeling incredibly vocal, you wanted to just be kind of like quiet or subdued. Be like, what's wrong?
I'm just not feeling like sharing stories today. I'm just trying to chill.
Yeah, to dance for you.
Yeah. All right. Oh no, why does that keep happening? Okay. When systems have historically punished certain bodies and voices, whether it's women who are too loud or not loud enough, or people of color, or queer folks, or any other marginalized population, for being too loud, too emotional, too assertive, the ability to express both strength and softness can represent either challenge or privilege. In contexts where historically marginalized voices are disproportionately policed, the freedom to express both power and softness can be a profound act of agency. So I find that it's a really courageous act when someone who has been given their entire life the social and systemic messaging that we don't want you to take up space, when they do decide to take up space, I'm like, I see you. I know what it took for you to be there. And of course, it's not to generalize, because some folks don't feel like they're impacted by these things, and that's fine too. But for many who are impacted by these systems, when they do step out, it's like, I know what it took for you to do that, and that's really beautiful. So this is another question on here. What is one message that you received about your voice growing up? And I think you shared a little bit about this, which is I can tell stories, I can be funny, I can gossip, and I can tell it how it is to an extent. That a message that you received was take up space conditionally, but not if it means that you're challenging the system that benefits us. What's something that maybe you might have been conditioned to believe about your voice?
Mine was to be quiet,
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially at the dinner table. I remember this so distinctly. It's like you can't talk at the dinner table. And then being in a chorus class when I was like in 6th grade, and the teacher slamming his hands on the keyboard or the piano and saying, "Get your mouth open." So it was like a dual. And I never studied music after that.
Wow. Two very different messaging. And it's like the body's like, but which one do I was taught at home that it's not safe for me to use my voice, and now you just want me to full force use my voice with me? That's disorienting to the body. The body is like being pulled in several directions, and it's not safe. I'm sorry.
It's interesting that there's still a charge there. I didn't know until we were sitting here. Yeah.
Wow. What's happening in your body right now?
Feels like explosion, kind of like a release of energy. I don't know how to say it.
A release of energy. Does it feel like a positive release, or does it feel?
Yeah, just to say it, like
Just to
link
say
it. Yeah.
Just to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do somatic work with a lot of folks, and that's part of what I do outside of Bloom. And just admitting and acknowledging something that we've been keeping inside and naming the thing is half the battle of releasing the hold it has on your body. The tension you might feel in your belly, the choking in your throat, like when you're about to cry and you like get that feeling and you're like, it's because something wants to be released, either a sound or a sentence or a feeling or anything, and the body feels like it can't, so it holds on to it. So the fact that you just felt a sense of release just by saying, yeah, I actually was taught this thing and it really sucked.
And it feels even more powerful to be in the environment with a bunch of music educators. You know, there's like an element of that too. It's almost like being able to say it out loud to them, you know. Yeah.
Can I give you a hug?
Oh yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I get it. I grew up with similar messaging. Specifically, as a singer in my household, child of immigrants, very stressed. My parents were stressed, like survival mode, making ends meet, working all the time. And I was a kid and I was singing at the top of my lungs, and they were like, stop, stop. Not because it was bad, but because they were so overloaded and overwhelmed with their life experience that my vocal taking up space was too much for them. And so I learned not to use my voice. But then I went to an art school. And we were singing every day, and I was like, well, same thing. I was like, but how, what sound, how? And it just wouldn't come out. It was a whole thing. And it took a while to unlearn. It took a lot of time and somatic work to unlearn that thing. All right, culture. So we're not gonna get into specific cultures, because again, there's like nuance and complexity within every culture, but generally, different cultures hold very different norms around volume, emotional expressiveness, directness, and hierarchy. I'll speak for myself. Being Armenian, I don't know if anyone knows about like the history of Armenia, but I am a great-granddaughter of genocide survivors on both sides of my family. And that kind of generational trauma leads to all sorts of silencing throughout all sorts of parts of the psyche and the body. And that being said, when generations don't work through what their culture has been through, it starts to show up as not feeling comfortable expressing emotions, and it becomes stoicism. It becomes survival mode. We have things to do. There's no time to cry. There's no time to feel your feelings. What are you talking about? I gotta put food on the table. Stop crying. But I was one who was like, guys, we gotta cry. And they're like, no. So the culture I come from is not very emotionally expressive. And so if you are the emotionally expressive one in your family, you might be going up against a wall. You might be the black sheep. You might be the one who's like challenging a system that everyone's accustomed to and comfortable with, even if they're comfortable with something that doesn't actually benefit them. Sometimes we're comfortable with things that we're just accustomed to, not necessarily because it's good for us. In some environments, emotional intensity is welcomed. In others, restraint is associated with respect or intelligence. Sometimes we get the messaging of if someone talks too much or talks too fast, maybe they're not very smart. Or if someone speaks with a certain tone, like maybe they're not very smart. Alexis from Schitt's Creek, it's just kind of like, but she was very smart. She just expressed herself a certain way. So are we attaching meaning to the way someone expresses themselves and generalizing what that means for their character, as opposed to seeing the human for everything that they actually are? Systemic racism is upheld by the social messaging that BIPOC must adhere to a colonized standard of communication, which leads to increased stress on the body. No! Increased stress on the body and increased cognitive and emotional labor navigating spaces. So many of us have probably heard the term, the phrase code switching. Many BIPOC folk feel the need to switch the timbre of their voice, the vocabulary that they use, and even just like their body language and sense of expressiveness when they step into either male-dominated spaces or white-dominated spaces, because there is that fear that has been shown through historical evidence that they will not be taken seriously, they will not be advanced in their career, they will not be accepted socially, they won't be considered intelligent if they're not speaking a certain way. So can we accept that different ways of speaking, different vocabulary, doesn't necessarily mean that someone is better than you or not as great, but it's just another authentic way of existing, and all ways are fine. BIPOC and queer folks receive social messaging to assimilate, to be smaller, to hide, to be more white, or to face fear of career and social repercussions for it. And when someone moves between these environments with different expectations, your nervous system has to adapt to it. And over time, those nervous system adaptations can become vocal habits. Are your expectations of speech, tone, and behavior rooted in colonial standards, or is it open and curious to multiple truths? And we don't have to chat about this out loud. It's just something to reflect on as you're walking through your day, as you're talking to your barista, as you're engaging with a student, as you're meeting a new friend. Something to just be self-aware of is like, am I being judgmental in this moment? Do I have preconceived notions of who this person is based on how they're speaking to me or where I think they come from? Just things to keep in mind. All right, nervous system. Boom, humans are tribal. If you don't fit in, things like rejection, humiliation, that's gonna signal to your body, I am not safe. That's the animal side of us, the primal side of us. Being tribal, like a pack of animals, if there's one animal that's left out, it does not have protection from danger, right? So we as humans, even though we are consciously more evolved than animals, we still do have that animal side of us. And we will do anything to fit in, even make ourselves smaller, change who we are, change the things that we like. That boy will like me if I dress this way. What? Stop. So if there is danger being signaled to the body, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. That's when we have things like your sweaty palms, increased heart rate, shallow, quick breaths, nausea, dizziness. This is when fight, flight, freeze, fawn is activated, and everyone responds differently to this. And there's physical things that come with fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, but what are the vocal things that come with that? Molly, you in danger, girl. Oh, okay, body scanning. This is what we just did, actually, and I want us to do this together. Body scanning is a somatic grounding practice used to be present with the body, to become aware of what sensations are present as we enter an activated state. So let's say you enter a conversation with someone and it's like they confront you about something. What happens? You're being, yeah, what did you just do?
Tighten up.
You tightened up, you shook a little, you went like this, you shook your head too, and you closed up. That's protection, safety. I don't want it, I can't do this. This is scary, I'm not safe. I might be rejected, I might get in trouble, or worse. So let's all actually do a body scanning moment right now. We're gonna close our eyes. Feel the seat beneath you. Really notice that you're sitting. Yeah. Notice if there's any muscles you can relax intentionally, right? Are you holding tension anywhere? Let's all take a deep breath together, in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. I want you to start from the top of your head. You're just gonna become aware of what sensations are pulsing through your body. Top of the head. I'm aware of my head here. Bring your awareness to your face. Can you relax any muscles in your face, your eyebrows, your eyes, your jaw, your lips? Bring your awareness to your throat. Any sensations in your throat? Can you swallow your saliva? Let's bring your attention to your shoulders. Are they tense? Are they up? by your ears? Can you relax them? Let's bring your attention to your back, your spine. Any sensations you might feel. Let's bring your awareness to your chest. That's your heart, your lungs. Are you feeling openness, expansiveness, or are you feeling maybe tightness? Maybe you've been kind of sad lately. Is that showing up in the body somewhere? Let's bring our attention to the belly. How does the belly feel? Can we relax the belly? Good, and bring your awareness to your hips, your glutes, your pelvis. Are you clenching any of these muscles here? Or can we relax these muscles? And let's bring our awareness to the legs, the thighs, all the way down to the feet. Wiggle your toes. You have toes, you have feet, you are here. And let's come back. Did anyone notice any sensations that stuck out to them? And you also don't have to share. Again, just food for thought. All right. Okay. So, how might activation show up vocally? If you are in a fight response, vocally, that might mean you're a little bit more assertive. You might be defending yourself. No, actually, that's not what I wanted. Please don't speak to me that way. That might be fight. You might be cursing. Actually, on my way here, I witnessed road rage like I have not seen before. A driver rolled down his window, started yelling at my Lyft driver. You, blah, blah, blah. Early in the morning, it's like 8 o'clock. And I was like, God, it's too early for this. But he was in fight mode. He said, I'm gonna use my voice to tell you a little something. It was very abrasive. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's actually a good thing. We need to defend ourselves at certain points, but there's nuance to that too. What happens if the body is in flight, avoiding confrontation or difficult conversations? Nope, can't do it, I gotta go. Can't say it. You might feel like, oh, I can't say this. Freeze, paralysis, stuttering, loss of words, can't speak, someone frozen in time, something really scary happened maybe. You're just, I can't say anything. And fawn, that's people pleasing. That is a safety measure. I mean, all of these are safety measures to a degree. Fawn is where I find a lot of folks that I work with, both like vocally, like as singers, and just my somatic clients. A lot of people pleasing, people saying things that they don't actually feel or believe as a way of preserving their safety, as a way of trying to mitigate the potential consequences of whatever the situation is. And so not actually being true to themselves, not being true to themselves. And it's a form of self-sacrifice. So vocally, what might be impacted here? I thought this image was insane. Please. Please. I had to put it because I thought it was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
I get to see the clips.
I know.
I thought we'd get a kick out of that because that's crazy. Okay, so when we're in an activated state, based on the systems that govern us, what might impact our voice? The volume at which we speak. Someone might speak like this because they don't feel safe taking up space. Someone might talk like this because they feel like they have to. The tone and the timbre of your sound. Someone might talk like this because it kind of makes them feel a little bit more safe. And if I'm a little bit like a little baby, you actually can't get mad at me. And that brings your defenses down and you can't be mad at a little baby. Or if I'm speaking like this, it's a little bit more assertive. You have to take me seriously because I'm being very direct and this is my tone of voice. It's a little bit lower, a little bit more hyper-masculine. That is intentional and sometimes involuntary, even if it's intentional. The words used, the difference between being direct and skirting around a topic. Sugarcoating something using euphemisms versus telling people what you really think and feel. Because many of us do have the experience of like, maybe you pour your heart out to someone and then you get rejected. And then your body learns, it is not safe for me to share my feelings. So I am never, ever gonna do that again. And then you don't. And then it's sad. Words used also goes back to culture, right? People feeling like they have to adjust the way that they speak, the things that they say, so that they can be accepted. Body language, whoa. Difference between the singers that I have who are like, and the kids who are like, I'm shy. So different. Very different. Sometimes they don't even have to say anything, and it's like, I've got some kids who have the most beautiful voices I've literally ever heard in my life, and they're so scared to use it. I'm like, I would love to hear more of your voice, but I know that they don't feel safe. There might be something there that's preventing them from actually singing thoroughly. And then a general sense of safety and social belonging. So, shy versus silenced. What happens when a child's bid for connection, a glimpse into their inner world, is rejected? The body learned that it was safer to stay quiet than to speak. So they might have been shut down when they were like, Mom, when you said this to me, I didn't like it. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, right? There might be verbal or physical abusive consequences for expressing feelings, and so the nervous system shuts down. Gradual, repeated consequences create the behavioral neural pathway that leads to consistent shutdown. It doesn't become a choice. It becomes instinct, because that's what the body learned. Opinions were minimized, emotions were discarded. So like the culture that I come from, women's opinions, not always taken seriously. And so I learned at a young age, when I speak my mind, when I defend myself, I am shut down and love is removed from my immediate environment. So in order for me to receive love, which is all children can do, is like adjust themselves to meet these survival needs, you close off and you decide, okay, so I'm not gonna share stuff. So that goes with a generation that was told that children should be seen and not heard. So people learn, oh, well, my opinions don't matter. I'm probably not smart enough anyways. No one's gonna care what I think anyways. That's when that inner narrative starts to form. Sentences like this, some of us might know some of these sentences. Painful stuff to see, painful stuff to hear and to experience. Don't talk back, right? Tells you don't defend yourself. You have no right to defend yourself. So what does that do to a child's agency? A child's sense of like, well, I deserve to be respected and loved. Your voice is grating. I can't tell you how many vocalists I work with who have the inner narrative that was built from a young age that they sound like trash. And they didn't sound like trash. But there's that narrative of like, well, my mom always told me I wasn't very good, or I sounded shrill. And that prevents you from exploring what you could sound like. Who cares what you think? Stop crying before I give you something to cry about. Carl Jung said that shame disconnects children from their authentic selves, forcing them to create false personas to gain approval. That's why when I see these kids who are like, I'm like, I know that your true essence is not that. That's your protective shell that you've created. That is your persona, your false persona as a response to the macro, meso, micro systems. Brene Brown, when we use shame to control behavior, kids learn to hide parts of themselves rather than understand and integrate them. So instead of learning like, okay, when we're at the library, I have to be quiet. When I'm at a really loud restaurant with my family, I can also be loud because we have to hear each other. As opposed to, I am bad for being loud. I don't deserve to be loud. I don't deserve to say what I want to say. So locational nuance versus like the inner narrative that is created. So how does the body adapt? People stop sharing their feelings. People stop sharing their thoughts, hesitating to speak up and defend yourself, fearing making big sounds like we did in the beginning of the day. I said, let's all sigh with a big sound, and all y'all went, oop, who's gonna do it first? Fears taking up space, people pleasing, flight, fawning, freeze becomes protection, and nervous system regulation. Boundary setting and honesty feels dangerous. I learned from a young age that if I say what I'm thinking, I'm going to get in trouble for it. So from now on, no one's going to know what I'm really thinking. This is important. When we don't express our true feelings on a situation, that's when the body starts responding. That choking feeling before you cry, an inability to sing at your fullest range. The number of vocalists I work with who don't have a technique problem, they have a body responding to inner narrative problem that prevents them from singing that high note because the body doesn't feel safe enough to make a loud sound and to use their diaphragm and to like belt. And they're like, oh, no, I can't do it. It's wild. Jaw clenching, TMJ, grinding your teeth, usually signifies anger. Usually signifies, oh, I'm so mad at people and I'm not allowed to show that I'm angry. In my culture, women are not allowed to be angry. You gotta be sweet and perfect all the time. What happens? That stuff builds up, becomes like a pressurized can. It needs somewhere to go. And so instead of learning that certain emotions are bad, can we just learn there's no such thing as a bad emotion. There's just ways to express them that are healthy and safe. Tension in the diaphragm, tension in your muscles, right? Shoulders raised, taking up less space in posture. Not so fun fact. I hate this. Several studies show that women are most likely to develop autoimmune disorders, which are the issues where the body has inflammation and essentially attacks itself. And there's a high correlation between the suppression of anger, self-silencing, and the development of autoimmune issues. And why is that? If we take anything away from this workshop today, I want it to be this slide. The words, emotions, and sounds that we never had the tools. I don't know how to do that. The permission, you're allowed to do this. Or the safety, I won't get in trouble if I do this, to express, remain swallowed and stuck in the unconscious mind. What is unexpressed consciously will express itself through the body. Anxiety, depression, insomnia, OCD, autoimmune disorders, chronic pain, hyperirritability. If anyone's familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate's work, highly recommend reading the book When the Body Says No. This is all in there. It's incredible, fascinating work. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about gender, right? How are we socialized as girls, regardless of your gender expression? If your sex is viewed as girl, we are socialized, we are given the macro social messaging. Be polite, agreeable, don't be too loud, don't be bossy, be nice, don't talk back, make other people comfortable. Don't really say what you're thinking because it might make them think otherwise. And be emotionally expressive but not angry. What does this lead to? The vocal implications. You might have girls that speak like this. They don't want to take up space. Breathier sound. They're speaking with less conviction. Maybe they don't believe what they're actually saying because they were told it didn't matter. Using an upward inflection, everything's kind of a question, I think, because they don't really believe what they're saying. Apologizing frequently, bumping into a table and saying sorry. Speaking indirectly, suppressing anger. Fear of being labeled dramatic, and this goes all the way on up to adulthood. This happens in the workplace. This happens everywhere. Being labeled dramatic or too much, so they shrink volume in authority and or male-dominated settings. And then judging the self and how pretty a sound is. How many of you have voice students who are like, no, that wasn't pretty? Or like, I can't, well, it's gonna sound bad. It's gonna sound bad. It sounds bad. What is sounding bad? Make mistakes, be messy. We were never taught it's okay to be messy. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect. And now the macro social messaging for boys. Be strong, don't cry, don't show fear, be dominant, speak with certainty, be competitive, don't be soft. The worst thing a man can do is be soft and vulnerable. What does that lead to for them? Intentionally lowering their pitch. Whereas studies show that boys are statistically shown to be more emotionally sensitive than girls are, but they're socialized out of it. And that changes the way that they show up vocally too. Suppressing vulnerability and tone. So you've got someone who's just speaking like this, everything is matter of fact, there's no emotions whatsoever, I don't know what you're talking about, bro, nothing. There's literally nothing behind that voice because they were taught not to show the emotion. avoiding emotional nuance, right? Everything is, those podcast bros where everything is just, yeah, well, this is what it is and these are the facts. Do you have emotions? Do you have feelings? I don't know. Masking fear with force. Equating volume with authority. Ugh, equating volume with authority. Stop. Filtering emotional responses through aggression. This one, I mean, we all see when a group of guys, and again, this is not to generalize, not everyone is this way. Not everyone is this way, but for the most part, a group of guys that like loves their sports and their sports team like wins. What are we doing? What are we doing vocally? Yeah! We're moving our bodies, we're not afraid to be aggressive vocally. But what about a man crying gently with sound? Whimpering.
Just won that game.
Yeah. Right. So, that was the most beautiful game I've ever seen. Yeah. It's not gonna happen.
I'd love to see it.
Right. I would also love to see it.
How many years have we waited for this?
We waited our whole lives for this.
I wish my dad could have seen it.
So it's socially acceptable for boys to have that like way bigger vocal and physical reaction, but when girls do it, it's unladylike. It's too loud, it's too dramatic, it's too emotional. So what happens here? Across many societies, gender socialization narrows our emotional and vocal range. The number of girls that I work with vocally who are afraid of like that sound I just made, they would never. It is the scariest thing in the world for a girl to make that sound who hasn't been socialized to like find comfort in that. When one side of our human range is suppressed, there are individual and systemic consequences. So both sexes are being denied access to human wholeness. We are not one or the other. We are everything, but we are being socialized through these systems to only be one or the other, otherwise to be judged for it. So what do we need to do here? Gradually finding safety in the body to explore expression. Very slowly. Wow, do you think that we could, this is for our like really quiet students. Yeah, well, what would happen if we made a little bit more sound? What would happen if we maybe opened the jaw a little bit wider, right? I have these singers who sing like this. What happens if we open the jaw? No, I can't. Why can't you? It was a bigger sound. Yeah, it was and it was a beautiful sound. That was a gorgeous sound. Yeah, but it was loud. Baby girl, it wasn't even that loud. It could have been louder, actually. Making sound without judgment, right? So creating a space as facilitators, as teachers that like, you're allowed to be messy here, you're allowed to make mistakes. It is safe here. I'm not gonna judge you, I'm not gonna yell at you. Letting them lead the timing. So we know this already, meeting them where they're at. We're not gonna push anyone past what we're noticing in their body language. If they're not ready, they're not ready. We don't wanna get them in an activated state. Using the body to express big feelings. This is where somatics come in. I love a healthy temper tantrum. Healthy meaning no one's getting hurt in the process. We're not breaking any walls in the process, but all of that pent up energy. I was told I'm not allowed to be angry. It is not safe to be angry. It's gotta go somewhere. Otherwise, we're all gonna have an autoimmune disease. So what do we wanna do? We wanna stomp the feet, get it out of the system. Maybe we wanna punch the air. I had a student who, bless her heart, such a sweet kid, had really big self-confidence issues with her voice. And so we recorded ourselves singing one time, and I wasn't aware that she was feeling this way about herself. And she listened to it and she just broke down. She was like, it sounds terrible, it's awful, I hate it, I'm so bad at everything, and just going on the spiral. 8-year-old. 8! So sad. And so we started talking. I was like, okay, what is happening? What is your brain telling you right now? And she was like, that I can't do it, that I'm bad, that everything's bad. And I was like, okay, can we envision that voice you hear in your head is actually something outside of you? It's a person or a thing, and you can talk to it right now. What do you want to say to it? She was like, I don't want to say anything, I want to hurt it. I was like, period. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? She was like, I want to stomp on it. I was like, stomp. Let's go. And she started stomping, and this crying turned into laughter. She loved it. I was like, what else do we want to do? She was like, I want to punch it. Great, we're punching the air now. She's getting the pent-up energy towards the situation out of her system, and it felt great. Other things that help, yelling and making primal sounds. This is especially helpful for folks who have been silenced. Sometimes you just need a nice big scream. And not every space is conducive to a nice big scream. We've got neighbors, we've got people in other rooms. But if it's safe enough, yeah, I highly recommend one big scream. Writing, composition, songwriting. The number of students that I work with who process some of their life experiences via writing and via singing is magical. It is magical. And then speaking out loud the things that were off limits. We don't feel like it's safe enough to say, Mom, I hate you. Right, like we don't want to hear someone saying that, but sometimes just for the moment, that is allowed to be true just for that moment. Get it out of the system. Oh wow, I feel better. No, my mom's great. We're going shopping today. Just get it out of the system. It's momentary. It's momentary. But it's when we don't express it that momentary actually becomes almost forever, becomes consistent, like a simmering pot in the background. And then corrective interactions that establish a sense of trust and safety to express oneself. So like verbal encouragement, positive reinforcement, like, wow, I love when you, that was great. Thank you for sharing that with me. I loved hearing that. How did that feel? And you felt good doing that? Wow, you should be really proud of yourself for doing that. Okay, pros. I'm talking about soft voices like it's a bad thing. It's not. We're just talking about the trauma-informed lens of it. Sometimes a soft voice means that someone feels comfortable being themselves and expressing themselves very gently, and that's just who they are, and they feel empowered in that, and that's beautiful. So there's nothing wrong with that either. Okay, now the opposite, being expressive, doesn't always mean confident. It might be a survival tool. Loud or fighting to be heard. In some homes, if you are not taking up space, you will be invisible. Maybe you have 8 siblings. Maybe many people live in the household. Maybe everyone's yelling all the time. And if you're not also yelling at the top of your lungs, no one's going to even notice that you didn't have dinner today. Interesting. Survival needs are met only if the voice is amplified, competing voices. For some, that assertiveness comes from needing to defend themselves from a young age. Maybe there are verbal and physical consequences that come with a sibling accusing you of something. Maybe it's not as simple as, well, he said this, and then the parent being like, Timmy, it's time out. Maybe it's actually, your brother said you did this, and maybe that leads to a more dangerous consequence. And so maybe someone learns, if they don't defend themselves, that's actually life or death for them. And that shows up in the voice like armor, protective, defensive, assertive. So that's when I'm working with students who are like really in their throat and or like really using their chest voice all the time, and finding that softness is actually the tough part. So what does the body learn in this scenario? Softness, not safe, doesn't work. If I'm vulnerable, I might be taken advantage of. Muscles might be tense. Pushing from the throat can lead to vocal damage. Chronic activation of fight or flight, but specifically fight. Strain becomes normal. You can lead to hoarseness. And maybe the body wants to soften, but it doesn't know how. It's had to be on guard all the time. Maybe it was never safe to let your guard down. Maybe the times that you did let your guard down, you were shown why you shouldn't. And so the body's always going to be like, nope, I've got my walls up and you actually can't do anything about it. So what happens when we, whoa, I'm here, I'm safe. It's okay for me to just make a gentle sound. And that might actually bring up emotion in certain people. I had a client who was just like this, like beautiful, big, loud, big belt. Always wanted everything to be like, ah! And I was like, what would happen if we sang this like, just for funsies, what would happen if we sang this like totally breathy, totally soft, lower the volume a little bit? What happens? She started crying. She sang it that way and she had to stop halfway because she started crying. She was like, I've never done that before and that was really scary. I was like, what was scary about that? She was like, well, I've always had to be loud. I've always had to like prove myself always had something to prove. And so for her, the idea that you could be loved and accepted and seen without trying so hard was a very scary experience. So what might the body need? Permission to explore softness. What happens if we just whisper? Some people have never whispered in their lives. Let's try it out. Whoa, new experience. What was that like? Did we hate it? That's okay. You don't have to do it again. And then maybe they want to do it again. Singing gently in head voice. Intentionally removing resonance in your spoken or sung sound, using a breathier and lighter tone like I did with that client. What can we do if they're in that activated state? Slow breaths. You want your exhale to be longer than the inhale. That's what lets the nervous system know I am safe to relax. Humming. The vibration of the vocal cords lets your body know that you are safe, and that is via the vagus nerve. So, little slide downs. This is for no one but me. I don't care if the person down the hall hears me. I'm just, that's it. Self-hug and gentle swaying, right? We want to relax. Someone who's in constant fight mode, they're on guard all the time. What happens if we slow down? Self-touch that is safe. Gentle swaying lets us know, all right, I don't have to move faster than this. I can release my shoulders. I can release my sense of urgency. Can I just be here in the moment? Listen to calming music, something instrumental. Sometimes lyrics gets us thinking too much. That cognitive processing of actual lyrics, we don't need it all the time. Instrumental music that doesn't have like a really intense beat can feel really, really nice for the nervous system. Okay, we talked about this. Yeah, don't sound emotional, keep it matter of fact, assertive. This is what some women are taught about their voices if they are more aggressive. Oh my God, okay, this is actually crazy.
I love your jacket, the sparkles.
I have a little bling here for today.
Yes, I wanted to find out who made it later. But I think the most important thing is they need access to therapy, counseling, mentorship, and other community-based programs. And I think it's also important to not label these kids as troubled or bad.
What was that?
I've never heard her speak in that voice before.
Right.
I didn't know she had that voice.
Right. Paris Hilton is a very smart woman. She's been in the public eye her entire life. She knows what the system wants. She knows what is going to get her attention systemically. She also knows what's going to keep her safe. We just witnessed in real time, hello? Tone shift in real time. Light and fluffy. Upward inflection to indicate to peers psychologically that she's not a threat. I'm not a threat if I'm talking up here. I'm not going to hurt you. Infantilizing the voice almost always ensures being perceived with friendliness or femininity. Femininity. What really is femininity and masculinity aside from what we've been assigned to those labels? Think about a waitress with customers versus a chef in the kitchen. We've all seen The Bear, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yelling in the kitchen. If you're talking like this in the kitchen, no food's gonna be made. No one's gonna hear you, and no one's gonna take you seriously. I've spoken with female chefs who are like, yeah, if I'm not speaking like the men, like the tone of the men, not just loudly, but like the actual stature and like the verbalization that men use, she's like, they don't take me seriously as their boss. But then a waitress, hi everyone, what can I get you? Oh my God, you look amazing, wow! It's like friendly, it's like light and fluffy and like bubbly, which is feminine, lets people's guards down. Paris Hilton just showed us both of these in real time, which is wild. Okay, we have an activity. Scary, scary activity. Ah! Okay, we are going to turn to someone. We're gonna interact with them. And you're actually just gonna say what your name is. And you're gonna say it 4 different ways. The first one, maybe softer in tone, maybe a little bit breathy, maybe less resonant, and not with so much conviction. Maybe there isn't as much confidence there. What might that sound like? What might that feel like in your body to say it that way? What might it sound like for it to be more assertive, but still unsure? What might it sound like for you to use that soft voice, yet be assured and confident? And then what might it sound like for it to be resonant, louder, and assured? So whenever you're ready, turn to someone. We're all gonna go. Do we all have a partner? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yes, we all have a partner. Scary. So we'll have one person go first. All right, everyone, let's bring it back in. We're gonna have Lev actually share. We're actually gonna have Lev share an insight, and I would love to hear from more people. What happened? What was that like?
For me, the two most difficult ones were the ones in the middle because they, like you were talking about earlier, like in order to feel confident as a man, I felt this growing up, like to be, like speak up, even though that wasn't intuitive for me as a kid, and it still isn't. So being resonant and loud and confident is like, for me, that's like, yeah, that makes sense. Soft and self-conscious makes sense. But to be resonant yet unsure, or to be soft but confident was hard for me. And that's funny, like Deborah said that you can share.
Soft yet assured and confident was natural to me. With the resonant loud.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, that's your, yes.
How she rolls, you know?
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else want to talk about what their experience was with this exercise? Did anything come up for you physically as you were doing this? Was there one where you noticed like, whoa, my body did not like that one. That was a scary one. Or, whoa, that actually, I feel expansive doing that one. That felt kind of nice. Anyone?
I didn't want to feel the soft and self-conscious. I just didn't want to feel it.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
I think I just noticed that each one feels different, like in your body. It makes you feel a different way emotionally.
Yeah.
And I feel like based on, where you're at emotionally that day, it can feel different, like what feels most natural to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can see how it's important to explore all of those things and to understand like what they feel like in the body, so you can recognize them. Also, so you can recognize sort of what your students are going through.
Yeah.
It's a good exercise.
Thank you. That last part, so we can recognize what our students are going through. There's nothing like putting yourself in someone's shoes to then be able to actually empathize and have compassion with, oh wow, they're being really shy today. There must be some stuff happening in the body with that. That must be like an uncomfortable experience for them. And maybe it's not, right? We also don't want to assume, but it just expands our understanding and our ability to connect with our students as well.
It also really made me think of like when you have a student for a long time, like that. Like I have a 4th grade girl that I've been teaching for a long time, and now she's in 7th grade.
Whoa!
And like seeing that transformation of like, oh, you were so confident. You had that resonance and that certainty.
That did not go the direction I thought it was.
No, you don't. Yeah,
but you know what that happens.
Everyone thinks that like they're in middle school and they're like, I don't know, do I like my voice anymore?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That, like that.
You know what, Alex?
Yeah.
Very few teachers, and one of my questions I used to tell parents when they wanted to leave Bloom, but they still wanted to hire a teacher to come to their house. And I said, ask them, how many students have they had in that 6 to 9 or 10 year range, and they still have them at age 13?
Yeah.
Because that is when some teachers can't bring them to 7th and 8th grade. They can only do this, or they can do this. The hardest thing is taking the kid before puberty, through puberty, and on the other side. And that's a special educator to figure out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that resonated of like seeing, just what you were saying was like kiddos can be in different places depending on the day or the age or kind of those transitions,
And I tend to find that the younger kids are, the more free
Yeah.
they are. And it's really like the older we get, the stronger that social messaging is, and then the louder the shell,
Yes.
the inner voice
the
becomes.
instrumentalists,
Yeah.
they used to not teach band until 5th grade. And so you would get a bunch of kids at 10, and so I'd get like a bunch of 10-year-olds, you know, for saxophone or whatever.
Sure.
And if I didn't have them improvising before puberty, it was not going to happen very well. It was going to be just awful, you know. But it was like getting them to do that when it was like, or going over the break before puberty
Sure.
on clarinet. That's a psychological thing, but it had a lot to do with how well they were going to do it.
Yeah.
I think another thing, the self-conscious reminded me of when I was younger, and when we have students in the room who are assimilating or speak a different language at home, or, you know, it's also the way you say your name. Like for a second I was like, who am I talking to? You know, because if I'm talking to like my Indian family, I'll say, my name is Radhika, you know, and I would say it like that. But if I'm like here, I'll say Radhika, you know, so it's also like that little switching, and I know that used to be really embarrassing for me when I was little, because my friends would call me Rads, because that was like radical.
Yeah.
And then when my parents or family would say to me, I'd be like, oh, that's, you know, because it's like that fitting in,
The fitting in.
that idea of being like the only not white kid, and
Yep.
you know, like that whole thing where you're like, I just want to blend in, and later, you're like, oh no, it's cool to be different, but
Yeah.
it takes, you have to get to middle school
Yeah.
to know that at school. So
Yeah.
just also hearing that in our kiddos who are from so many different places
Yeah.
in our classrooms.
And so you're saying that came up just now doing this activity. You were like, oh, who am I speaking to? Like, how am I going to say my name?
Well, yeah, because when you said self-conscious, and I haven't
Oh, that's what, right, that's right.
I haven't said it in a self-conscious way in a long time.
Whoa.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's.
Which, love that for you.
Yeah.
We're owning it. We're owning it. We're owning the name. We're owning the culture. And that's beautiful. So I kind of love that it's been a while since you've had that thought. But interesting to look back on it and be like, whoa, that used to be a thing for me. So we do grow, we do change based on our experiences. Thank you for sharing that. All right, y'all, we are almost there. You're doing amazing. All right, what do we do? What do we do? So we're not here to fix people. We're not here to fix the voice, right? We're here to have an informed lens and to provide an environment where maybe we've got some extra tools we can use. And if that ends up helping, beautiful, amazing. If not, the time will come when people find what's right for them. So something that I find really helps with a throat blockage, right, when we've been told not to say certain things, is to speak positive affirmations out loud. And it's scary. I have some students, and when I say students, like, I don't just mean kids, like, I mean like 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. I've got a 50-year-old student speaking in the mirror. Stand this close to the mirror. Look into your eyes. I love you. Scariest thing in the whole world. Scariest thing someone can do if it's the first time they've ever done it. Horrifying. And it brings up emotions. It's like, wow, I've actually never witnessed myself that way. And I've never spoken to myself that way. And what are the things that I needed to hear growing up that I can now say to myself as an adult, or even as a kid? Sometimes when I have kids who are feeling self-conscious with their voice, I'll be like, go to the mirror. What are you going to say? What do you need to hear? What would you say to a friend? Speak to yourself like a friend. I'm learning, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and I get better every time, and it's okay if it's messy. I really like these things about myself. I really like when I do these things. And it can be super uncomfortable, but when we reinforce from an early age that it's really healthy to speak positively to yourself, it's not like some weird like new age stuff, like it's actually like scientifically backed that speaking to your body is so helpful and beneficial to your health. Anyone at any age can do it. So starting young, amazing. What are some other affirmations that you guys can think of based on some experiences you might have had with students or even like with yourself? Like if you're reading some of these and you're like, whoa, maybe I can say that to myself. Or what's some other thing related to your voice or the messaging you received about your voice that we can sort of undo with some positive affirmations? Does anything specific come to anyone?
If my voice cracks during a warm up or anything like that, I let them know, like, it happens to me too. Or if it's raspy, or it's like it's the 8th class of the day, so it sounds like this.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's Friday, so it sounds like this.
Yeah. Normalize it. Yeah. Everyone just wants to feel seen, like they're not the only one having that experience.
Yeah, I let them know the mistakes. Or same thing, if I just goof, I'm like, oh yeah, I made a mistake. Instead of being like, oh, I'm perfect, or that's okay, or just move on. I'm like, oh no, I made a mistake, that's okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
This is the appropriate amount of rage.
I love it! Yes. Absolutely.
You're gonna like pick up a bench.
Yeah, my rage is validated, actually. I am not overreacting. Actually, not overreacting. This is a very appropriate response to this very specific experience. Yeah, that is something we all need to affirm to ourselves these days. What else can we do? Take care of yourself. If you are not regulated, the people you're working with, they're gonna feel it. You know, when you walk into a room, you don't know what happened before you walk into the room, but you can just feel someone argued in here. There's tension, it's thick, I can cut this with a knife. That's energy. We feel other people's energy. So if you're feeling anxious and jittery, that kid's gonna feel it too. They're gonna be like, whoa, 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 not a safe place. But if you're grounded, if you're calm, if you're open, if you love yourself and accept yourself in a way that we're conditioned not to, through capitalism, through patriarchy, through colonialism, others are gonna have the permission to love themselves and maybe show a little bit more of their like weird, authentic self without judging themselves. But it has to start with us not judging ourselves. It has to start with us like accepting our own quirks, our own, yeah, I do sound this way, and like TBH, love it. That's just who I am. It makes me unique. My voice is unique. My voice doesn't need to sound like anyone else. I'm allowed to be different. So some things somatically we can do to regulate ourselves. Go touch grass. Put the phone down, go touch grass. Take your shoes off, barefoot in the dirt, barefoot in the grass, barefoot in the water, barefoot in the sand. Feel nature. Come back here. Everything happening in the news right now, everything happening around us. Horrifying. Intentionally meant to dysregulate us. That's a different conversation. But intentionally meant to put us in a fear state so that we don't use our voices, so that we don't defend other people, so that we don't be our authentic selves, so that we feel small. Because the more expansive we feel, the systems that govern us can't actually last, the more authentic we actually are. The more people stand up and use their voices, the systems will crumble. So, somatic shake, let's talk about this. It's literally gonna be, y'all could do this with me if you want to, I'm not gonna make you. You're gonna stand feet hip width apart, gentle bend in the knees, loosen up the arms. Yeah, okay. Period. Let's do it. Yeah, we've also been sitting for a long time. Very good. Let's do a nice big stretch. It is cold in this room. Definitely. All right, we're going to stand with our feet hip width apart. Gentle bend in the knees, so we don't want to lock the knees straight. Gentle bend. Allow your arms to be loosey-goosey. Let them dangle. Yeah, and now the shake is going to be a bounce from the knees up. So your heels are not going to leave the ground, but we're going to do one of these. Yep. If you relax your muscles, especially the pelvic floor here, this shake can not only bring you back to your body, but some of that like road rage energy, we can get that out through here. And then it becomes even more powerful when we incorporate the voice here. If you relax your jaw, open the mouth, we don't have to make a specific sound, just let the voice join your body right now. What might that sound like? And you have permission to sound strange. Yeah, yep. What happens if you lower your voice? And what happens if you raise your voice? Very nice. And feel the energy just kind of coursing through your body right now. Yeah, nice deep breath. Exhale with a big sound. Good. Good. Nice work, everyone. That is one of the many things we can do somatically. If you want more somatic practices, I'm happy to chat with you at the end. Other things we can do, we're bringing this to an end. Feel free to stay standing, honestly, because you've been sitting this whole time, but you can also sit if you'd like to. Using trauma-informed language. I think we all know this by now. We're not going to criticize. We're not going to say that was wrong, that was bad. We want to stay away from that. We want to be more inclusive. Progress is allowed to be messy or imperfect. We want to empower the kids that we're teaching to see their voice as a part of their identity and not just a skill for performance that has to be perfect. The way that you speak has everything to do with your personality. How are you going to talk? What words are you going to use, you know? What does your voice want to say? That's great for songwriting, great for poetry. When do you feel most like yourself vocally? And where did you learn that? Where did that come from? This one is going to be for us and for kids. So, reframe our inner narrative, which is context specific. Learned narrative, I have to be loud to be heard. This is just one example. We all have very different, maybe similar, inner narratives. If this is your learned narrative, how do we reframe that? Any guesses? What's a reframe for that? A healthy reframe.
However I want to be is fine.
Yeah. I deserve to be heard at any volume. I don't have to remain in spaces where I don't feel respected. As kids, we don't really have an option. We're forced to be in spaces where we don't feel comfortable. But when your body is in a traumatized state, it thinks you're still living back there. To bring the body out of that state, we have to close the loop. And that comes through habitual speaking to the self and reframing and saying, whoa, hey body, I know it feels like we're back there where dad used to yell at you every time you would speak this way, but we're here now. We're in this space where I feel loved and respected. You are safe. It is okay. Take some deep breaths, do a little shaking, right? So it's a combination of speaking to the self, constant reframing, moving the body, and it takes time. It's very gradual. Here's another one. Learn narrative. If I speak up, I'll be punished. What's maybe a reframe for that? There's many ways to reframe all of these. There's many answers.
People don't need to like me.
Love that one. Being your authentic self will push the wrong people away, and it will magnetize the right people towards you. You find your people if you are yourself. And if you're pretending to be someone, you're never really gonna feel seen or loved or heard. That was true in some environments I've experienced. It's not universally true now. That's just one of many ways to reframe it. I love your reframe, Deborah. That was exactly right. All right, y'all, we are at the tail end. Going back to micro, meso, macro. I'm not gonna read through all of these, but there are consequences within each of those systems to vocal suppression and then vocal freedom. So take a look here. What happens on the micro level? If we're suppressing our power, boom, tension, can't set boundaries, somatic issues, feeling shame, overfunctioning and people-pleasing, and a decreased vocal range, regardless of your technique. You're not gonna be able to sing those high notes or belt. And then the opposite, suppressing vocal softness, you might feel emotionally numb, loneliness masked as stoicism, anger as a primary emotional outlet, difficulty accessing grief or fear, restricted vocal and emotional range. But then what are the outcomes? Healthier, flexible nervous system. Flexible vocal tone, both power and softness available as tools for artistic expression, rather than one being the way that you have to do it because it's the only way your body allows you to do it. So the difference between having access to many tools versus I can only do it this way because my body is in fight or flight. Healthy boundary setting, verbal honesty, emotional openness, emotional availability, reduced shame, more self-trust, self-love, self-confidence, greater creativity and authentic expression, more art. Meso, This shows up in communities. This shows up in our relationships with one another. If our voices are suppressed, we're building up resentment. There's more passive aggression, more indirect communication, unequal emotional labor on the people who carry more softness. Suppressing the softness, emotional isolation, intimacy difficulties contributing to the male loneliness epidemic, peer cultures that punish vulnerability, potential for conflict escalating rather than resolving without the ability to communicate honestly, calmly, and or vulnerably, i.e. people who get into fights because they don't know how to talk about their feelings. What are the positive outcomes? Better relationships, greater likelihood of people from all walks of life feeling seen, understood, and heard. And all humans really want is to be seen, understood, and heard by their peers. Conflict can be addressed without domination or defensiveness. Cultural expectations begin to shift. This is where we start to see the systems that govern us start to maybe be dismantled a little bit. People are allowed to cry without shame. People are allowed to be healthily angry. This is the appropriate amount of rage for this experience. Without punishment. Partnerships built on mutual expression rather than labor falling on one person. More art. And finally, macro consequences. If our voices remain suppressed, leadership spaces lack diverse authority styles. Assertive women become labeled aggressive, becomes an inherited societal expectation. Intersectional and structural inequities will persist. Violence becomes normalized as strength, and there are going to be less peaceful outcomes. Think of law enforcement, less peaceful outcomes. And then think of international relations, war, genocide, everywhere. Mental health crises go underaddressed, causing further burden to populations' quality of life, and also to your pockets. This kind of thing, vocal suppression doesn't just affect you as an individual, it affects all of us. It affects our quality of life, the way that we walk the world. Higher risk of medical issues and disease in population, so that also impacts taxpayers and quality of life. People devalue emotional labor. And this one to me is the most important. Fear of being heard leads to a decrease in individuals fighting back against inequity, the inability to use the voice to defend fellow humans against the system. If we are living in fear, people are going to keep getting taken and hurt because we don't feel empowered enough to use our voices to yell at a protest or to create that piece of art that challenges the system, that questions the government, that questions where we come from, what we were told to believe in. How many people fear sharing a song or a piece of art they've made because they think it's going to be judged or too much or they might be rejected in some way, right? But macro outcomes, expansive leadership styles beyond patriarchal and colonial models, care work and emotional intelligence is valued, reduced gender-based and racially charged violence. If we understand and see each other as whole human beings as opposed to judging on stereotypes and fear-based expectations, we will be safer, more peaceful. Policies, government, shaped by both strength and empathy, leading to a better quality of life for all. Cultural narratives broaden about what power actually looks like, so shifting from a patriarchy to a matriarchy, which does not mean now women are in power. Matriarchy is about community. It's about caring for people's feelings. And the best part, more art that challenges and inspires the system. And that, my friends, is all for today. Thank you. Oh, hello. Maybe? Yeah. Thank you guys for being here with me today. You're all awesome. And thank you for sharing some pretty vulnerable stuff and doing the reflection with me. Opening it up to questions if we have any. And or reflective discussion. It's a lot. We're going to marinate.
I think the teaching, we keep coming back to the same thing, to bring it all to that bottom line is safety, right? Yeah. The kids, we can help them feel safe in the classroom or in the lesson. That's when the magic happens. That's when they can be themselves and creative and feel a sense of belonging. Yeah, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, and that's the way you talked about talking to your students saying, what if we opened our mouths a little more?
Yeah.
I would never think to say it that way, but it's such a beautiful way to say it. What if you just tried it and like, it's all good. Just give it a shot, you know?
Yeah. And if we crash and burn, it's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I used to have the same thing with so many of our kids, like, barely opening their mouths, so
So much
nervous
fear.
to express. Even at like 6 years old. Like, yeah. So.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How would you approach it in a larger group setting? Because a lot of us are doing like big group classes. And it's obviously difficult because you can't address somebody's individual concerns all the time, you know. But I can see like we could do something like the exercises, like the body movement stuff. We could change our language, sort of like Lev is saying. But do you have anything else? Do you think that would be good for a group?
Yeah, when it comes to big groups, because we're not giving everyone individual attention and we can't go too deep into like their personal relationship with their parents and how their parents yell at them, right? I think exactly what you said, sticking to more generalized like, all right, y'all, let's take some deep breaths together. Let's make some big sounds together. Let's make a gentle sound. What does a gentle sound like? Whew. All right, and what if we all, on the count of 3, just made a really big sound? 1, 2, 3, bah! Let them get it out of the system. Let them get it out. And then same with movement, yeah, right? Like the shaking. You can even ask everyone like, all right, I want you to pick one movement. You can use any part of your body. You can use your hands, you can use your feet, you can use your hips, you can use your head, whatever you want to use. And on the count of 3, you're going to use that body part to express yourself some way. And then that way everyone gets kind of an individual experience, but it's still like
however you're feeling.
Yeah, however you're feeling, because not everyone in the class is going to be feeling the same way, obviously. Yeah, but it still keeps it like we're still contained.